Welcome to the Armchair Trader podcast. And today on the podcast, we're talking about the gaming and technology sector. And we're joined by Mark Segal, who is CEO of Gaming Realms. Welcome to the podcast, Mark.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And we're actually big fans of the company here. We tipped it back in January. We felt it had some really good growth prospects. This morning, I ran it through our AI engine, which the guys at Bridgewise have kindly built for us, and that's also keen on the company, has it as a buy. I guess very quickly from our perspective, it would be good if you give us a quick overview of Gaming Realms and what it does, so listeners can be familiar with it.
Yeah, so Gaming Realms is a developer and licenser of casino games, essentially, for the regulated international iGaming market, which is the online casino market, and also social casinos. We are the owner of the Slingo IP, which the name comes from a mixture of slot and bingo, essentially, which was invented in the US approximately 30 years ago and is actually a very important brand in itself in the iGaming market, as well as in the lottery market in the US. You can buy physical scratch cards for lotteries with Slingo branded all over it in over 40 states. And we also publish our games in the social space. It's like a freemium model as well to monetize there.
And it is a massive area, this. I mean, I'm not actually myself someone who's an online gamer, and it's one of those things, either you are or you aren't. I think people who are probably already very familiar with Slingo. I remember as a kid slot machines in pubs and things like that. Is this really the successor to the slot machine in that it's much more widely available and people can access it effectively from anywhere?
Yeah, so online casinos for sure. There is more access to these games, and there are online slots which are very, very popular. Our game is slightly different. It's a bit more of an experience. It's not a 3-second game. It can take a minute or a minute and a half to play. So it plays a little bit more like bingo, where you're marking off numbers, but it does have this single player element, which makes it really engaging for players as well. And if you go to a lot of the online casino sites or online bingo sites in the UK, you'll actually see that Slingo is a category of game now. And because of that, we're able to license in really like you would see probably if you were in the pubs and things. You know, we have a Slingo deal or no deal game. And we also license other casino games into our Slingo mechanic as well, which again just helps with the cross-sell of players to Slingo or helps enhance the players' experiences on the sites.
And you actually own the IP for this. How easy is that IP to defend? I mean, is it something that you have to actively work to protect?
So the brand itself, very, very easy, and that is synonymous with the mechanic. So a mechanic similar doesn't penetrate like Slingo would. It's all part of the same thing. To the point where we have studios, so-called competitor studios who are also building these games. They are licensing their brand IP to us for us to develop it into a Slingo game where we fully own that game apart from their brand. And they're doing that because they're not trying to copy or do it the other way around. There's also a high barrier to building games like ours. They're different to other games. So for someone else, there's R&D and I get it, the maths and the mechanics and how it's developed, they would have to learn. And it's not core to what they do. And the only people who've ever done it have been us. So, we brought it into this space essentially. So I think really just the brand alone sort of stands it out, which is why we get people licensing the brand. I mean, there's an operator in Europe who's licensed Slingo.com domain offers. Now they fully operate that site, but they want it because it's helping them acquire players. It's got brand sort of recognition from players as well, so it has the trust element to it, etc. We don't operate that at all, and it just sort of shows where the brand stands.
From a sort of operational perspective, is this very similar to running a, say, a video games developer? Are many of the concerns and challenges the same? And how is it different from something like that?
I think it's different in the sense that we what we're doing is we're developing these games. We have a suite of over 60 games in our portfolio, and we're trying to build 10 to 12 new innovative versions of it every year. We license these on a non-exclusive basis worldwide. So a bit like a video game, once we built it once, it can go on lots of different platforms and lots of different markets. And actually, as a result of that, what's really exciting for us is US market is our biggest market now, which is sort of a very rapidly growing market. I think the difference is, though, the operators, so think of big UK operators, it could be Gala Bingo or Bet365 or whoever we see advertising, they are advertising attracting all the players. We don't advertise the games ourselves. We work very closely with the operators to make sure that we have games which are marketable. And there are a lot of operators now see Slingo as a good acquisition channel and actually will put our games on their TV adverts or their Facebook adverts or wherever they advertise, essentially. So I think that's the difference. And also, it takes 9 months to build a game versus a video games could take a very long time. And we can go cross-platform.
Yeah, exactly. And presumably the budgets are not the same. Like a landmark video game, big blockbuster one is going to cost a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, they're in the tens of millions. Exactly. Ours are a lot smaller budgets.
Now, I mean, one of the things we liked about the company is that element you've mentioned already, which is the opening up of the US market, which we think is potentially huge and could really benefit you as a company. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because traditionally, online gaming was really restricted in the US and is still restricted in some parts of the US. And yes, okay, you can argue that that's where Las Vegas is, but Las Vegas was actually a small island in the middle of a large country where there wasn't actually much gaming going on. But it seems now that things are changing in the US, and that's creating a huge opportunity for you.
Yeah, that's right. There's over the last 6-7 years, they've started to allow online gaming and online sports betting in the US. But it's a little lopsided. So very quickly over the last few years, it's grown from say 2 to 37 states have allowed online sports betting. There are still only 6 which allow iGaming or online casinos, essentially. And of those, in those states, the biggest are New Jersey, Michigan, Pennsylvania, which we are live in. Connecticut's the 4th biggest. It's a bit of a drop for Connecticut, but still a really nice market for us, which we're in. And the final 2 of West Virginia is too small, really, and Nevada doesn't allow casino, it's only poker. But for Michigan, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, the online casino market's a much bigger market than the online sports. So there is no, it has, the legislation is essentially a state by state legislation. Bills get passed in each state. It's not a federal process, which is slowing it down, I think. But I think the fact that so many have done online sports betting, that we will grow now to, hopefully they will start to look at online casino bills, essentially. I have to be honest, there's no new ones currently in process, but there are a few states talking about it. We are very well placed now, though. Our operations, that if a new market launches, we can launch there quite quickly. There is a high barrier to entry for it, but we know what we're doing now. We've done it 4 times there. We've done it in Ontario, which is a big province of Canada, which we think is going to be similar size to the big markets in the US. Probably just to give you some very quick numbers in these states. They've not all been live the whole time, but sort of the iGaming market in 2019 in the US was $500 million, and in 2019 and 2022 was 5 billion. And that's as Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Jersey have grown, as or launched in that period, etc. So it's a very fast growing market, and that's these four markets we're in are expected to continue to grow through to 20, well, into the distance, and new states on top will expedite that for sure.
Well, and what sort of, in terms of your overall revenues, how important is the US to the company at the moment?
The US is over 50% of our group revenues. Probably in the content licensing, it's slightly low, slightly below 50%, but still our biggest market. So it's very important. Because we've been one of the first content suppliers in the market in New Jersey, it's getting a bit sort of detailed here. We have direct integrations with the biggest operators there, which have the 80-90% of the market. We're live with almost everybody anyway, but what that means is as a new market opens, we already have our games plugged into the platform. We have multi-state deals with all of these operators as well, so we are able to quite quickly move with them into new markets as they open. And actually, just to show some strength there, we have our own platform which hosts all our games, and there's big numbers which go through it. Last year there was over £4 billion bet on our games. Operators made over £250 million from our games. This is worldwide, so there's big numbers which go through. And so we've had some studios in Europe say, well, we want to serve the US market, we don't have a means to do it, can we put our games on your platform for you to take them through? And so we're starting to see some interest on that side as well. And these will be games which complement our current offering.
And obviously, it's not just the US you're expanding in. I mean, you continue to announce deals. I see you've had Casino Gran Madrid in Spain, Betflag in Italy, Fair Play in the Netherlands. Are you seeing like a global trend for this as well? You're picking up lots of new partners.
We've been growing, everywhere, I would say. Our growth in Europe is really impressive. It starts on bigger numbers, but it was still over 25% year-on-year growth. Well, outside the US, should I say, in these regulated markets. So we're still seeing some really nice growth there. We have big partners to onboard almost everywhere. We've got games. Again, the other thing I should add is once we go live, all the games need to be certified for the regulations in each market, and that takes a rollout time. So once we go live with the set of operators, we still grow with those operators over the next couple of years and then maintain. There's each new game helps grow with operators. So it's hopefully each year as we add games and add operators, we start to see a layering on top of our revenues.
And one of the key things I wanted to ask you about was the way this sector, and particularly a company like yourself, behaves during periods of economic stress. So I remember in previous recessions as well, companies in the gaming sector, surprisingly for the layman, seem to always continue to do quite well. And when we were looking at the company initially, again using our own sort of proprietary internal systems, our AI scored it 90 out of 100 on cash flow and 84 out of 100 on income statement. So it looks like you are quite a cash rich business, and despite, or maybe because of the pandemic and the lockdowns, and even during a period of some global economic contraction, gaming realm seems to continue to do really well. What would you attribute that to? Why is it that companies in this sector and a stock like yourselves seem to be able to actually perform incredibly well?
I think when we only work with regulated, sort of responsible operators, and I think when it's done well, it should be a good form of entertainment, and should be controlled. And I think it's the sector in. I know entertainment's often hit, but I think just it probably is replacing going out for for meals or the cinema and things like that, it's probably just a little bit more resilient. It's something you can consume at home, like, for example, the streaming services and things like that. And particularly on the sports side as well, you've got the fact that sports still is ongoing and it enhances some people's enjoyment of sport. And I think that's maybe why, as a bit more macro, they are growing markets in some cases anyway, as people are finding it for the first time. For us, particularly in our business model, I suppose you touched on a slightly different thing just outside of economic factors, is we're at a point in time where we have nice operational leverage in our business. So as we're growing our revenue, it's actually at higher margins now because our costs are not increasing with revenue. And I think that's a lot to do with just the business model in general for, well, some tech companies are like this anyway, but also in general for this industry. You can, once you get certain scale in the business, that can grow because essentially we have a platform which is very scalable, and it doesn't need to be scalable with additional manpower, etc.
And you're someone who has been in the gaming market for quite some time. You were a finance director of Cashcade before it was acquired by Party Gaming. And you've been with Gaming Realms since 2013, and you were with bwin.party as well. From your perspective as someone who's been in the industry for a while, what do you see as the main kind of catalysts and changes that are powering at the moment that investors need to take into consideration?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So when I started, just a little history. Cashcade was a company which owned essentially developed a bingo brand called Foxy Bingo, which was the biggest online bingo brand at the time, which we sold to Party Gaming, and we worked through the integration of that before essentially a lot of the same team founded Gaming Realms. And at that point, it was very much the catalyst was about moving from our desktop computers through to mobile and offering essentially a bingo product which could work at, be appealing for someone sitting on a mobile playing. And that's why we acquired Slingo and where Slingo came from. It wasn't in online gaming in those days. There is definitely innovation in the type of content which players need. They have already lots of variety, but I think innovation to have games which have a little bit more interaction with them, which our games are providing. I think that's the biggest thing. It's actually this move to mobile, and then it is the regulation of markets. So when the Netherlands regulated, for example, we could go into that as a licensed operator. The same in the US markets as well. I think they are the big things for us. It's regulation has actually been helping us launch in new markets.
So when you say that, you say regulation helps you launch in new markets, basically, is that where a market might, for instance, say that previously they've just tried to control gaming in casinos, and theoretically speaking, you're not meant to be gaming online, but obviously everyone is, to a point where they go, actually, no, you can now game online or with apps on your phone. But now the companies that are providing that service in our market have to be properly regulated.
Yeah, that's essentially what's happening, and we've chosen to delay entering some of those markets when we know that regulation's about to happen because we want to work with responsible partners essentially. If the market's properly regulated, then these operators get the chance to sort of grow quickly, and we can be a part of it.
And we haven't mentioned Asia yet on the podcast. How important is Asia as a region for Gaming Realms?
For us, it comes back to the regulated markets. I know we see a lot of advertising from a lot of companies in regions like China, for example, and stuff, but it's not legal there, so we don't participate in that market.
Right. So, but I guess if China were ever to say we're going to regulate online gaming in China, that's going to be that's the holy grail there.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, again, it's it's not as simple as saying, great, we'll just serve our games, we'll do a localization and we'll invest, because we want to do things properly for markets. But yes, definitely, it'll be a huge market, I'm sure.
You also recently announced that you had secured brand licensing agreements for Tetris and Taito's Space Invaders.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit about how that works?
So, well, we have it with a number of games. I think I said earlier, where we have our Slingo mechanic, and if we can find the right brands that we feel we can use within our mechanic, then they can be very important for us. So it's going to be a Slingo game. We'll have Tetris branding and elements in there, and it's a difficult. It won't be the skill based game because it's different, but we're hoping that, and the same with Space Invaders actually, that there'll be a nice sort of, well, probably for us, our sort of demographic. I grew up on those games, and they're great. They're great games. They're video games. They should fit nicely with the games we want to develop, and we think it's something that our partners can use to market Slingo and attract players to their own casinos as well. They should be really neat games, big brands.
And you also have a new aggregation partner in the form of EveryMatrix, which is going to help you launch into the MGA markets. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we host all our games on our own platform. Essentially, when you go live with new partners, there's a technical integration of the wallet. I mean, we're getting very detailed here, which we do, but also we sometimes plug into these aggregator platforms or distribution partners, because they may have 30 partners there plugged into already. So EveryMatrix is one of a few we work with, and it hopefully will help improve our distribution, essentially, of our games. It's essentially one bit of work which may get us into 10 or 15 partners. And yes, there's a middleman fee in the middle of it, but it's worth it to launch more quickly.
And just finally, I wanted to also ask you about what your plans are for the next 12 months and anything investors and potential investors can look forward to. I know you can't give us too much information, but
No, but I mean, it's sort of, look, we've started this year with growth, which is, our revenue in January, February this year is over 50% more than it was in the first 2 months of last year. We've been growing organically, and hopefully we'll continue to be doing that into this year with games like Slingo Space Invaders or Slingo Tetris. We've got some really exciting content to market. We've got new operators going live. Hopefully new markets will be entering, and growth from markets like Connecticut we went into last year will grow into this year. So I think when I say more of the same, it's more of the good stuff we've been doing, essentially. I think we're in a really nice place, and it's nice to be able to grow organically, to be generating cash. It's a tough market at the moment, so we're very nicely placed. We're debt free now, and so it's really nice position to be in. And then maybe we'll assess a bit later on how we invest for further growth on top of all, going off in whichever direction after that.
Well, brilliant. Well, thank you very much indeed for coming on the podcast and talking a little bit more about the company today. And good luck with the year ahead. And we'll be keeping close tabs on the company as it goes forwards.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks, really. I appreciate your time, and thank you very much for having me. It's been really good to tell the story. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Armchair Trader podcast. Make sure you visit our website, www.thearmchairtrader.com, for your daily dose of financial markets news, and sign up to our free newsletter there.